Hello there and welcome to my channel. In this video I'm going to show you how to make a very quick and simple square quilt block. In this video I'm going to show you how to pre-cut your squares to size. Now you can buy already pre-cut squares. You can get them in 10-inch, in 5-inch and 2.5-inch. I think those are the only sizes, but I could be wrong. Let me know in the comments down below. So I have my rotary cutter, my fabric, my ruler and my cutting mat. I've just folded over my fabric and it's perfectly straight from the back side to the front side. Just double check on that. Now it's up to you. You can put it up to the 1, 2 and 3 and cut it there, or you can just match it up to any square and just go 1, 2, 3. So I don't know what size quilt you're going to make, so I'm going to show you the technique of putting these squares together. So cut as many squares as what you think you're going to need for your project. So I've cut mine along the 3-inch mark here. And then I'm going to open this fabric out and I'm going to find my 3 inches of squares and I'm going to cut along there. So just make sure it's all square and then cut. And then you're left with a 3-inch square. So obviously, the bigger the squares you're going to use, the quicker your quilt is going to be to quilt. And obviously, the teeny tiny squares that you cut is going to be much longer. So just take that into consideration if you are a beginner and you are starting off. So I have a whole batch of 3-inch squares all cut out here. And let's go over to the sewing machine. Now, because my fabric is a light colour, I will always use a light coloured thread to match. This light colour will be in both my top thread as well as my bobbin thread. If you're using a regular polyester thread and just general cotton fabric, a 90-14 needle should be fine for this task. I recommend that you use polyester thread opposed to cotton because polyester will hold up and last much longer than a cotton thread. I also like to take down my stitched length a little bit. So I'm going to leave it on a 2.0. I just like it to be a little bit narrower when I'm joining seams together. You will also be needing your iron, so now would be a good time to turn that on. So let's start creating this square quilt. When we're working with fabrics, there's generally a right side, which is the printed side, and there's a wrong side, which is an unprinted side. And on cottons, it's very obvious, unless you're working with a Baltic print, I think that's how you pronounce it, where the print is on both sides. But as a general rule of thumb, most cottons have an obvious right side and wrong side. So to start creating this square quilt, we are going to put the turquoise and the coral right sides together like so. Now if you want, you can pin down here, but there's really no need. You should be fine. Just hold them both together and then we're going to sew right along here. So when you're quilting, more often than not, you're always using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now, I have a foot for my machine that measures a 1/4 inch allowance. So however you measure a 1/4 inch, that is the measurement we are going to take when we start sewing these seams together. So here are my 2 3-inch squares lined up right at the start of the needle, and they are both right sides together, and we are now going to sew down this seam. Now you can take your speed dial down just while you get the hang of it, but just sew a 1/4 inch seam. So here you go, this is your first square, or 2 squares, all quilted, like so. Now, the best rule is turn it over and you are going to press this seam down. Now you're going to press it to the darker side of the fabric. With this one it's kind of here nor there. I think I'm just going to press it down to the teal side. Now this creates this nice flat looking finish, and it also serves a second purpose, and I'll show you why later. All I do now is get my next square section for my quilt, and I am going to put it right sides together, and I'm going to do exactly the same thing and sew 1/4 inch. Then I'm going to press this again, and I'm going to go one way with my seam pressing, and I'll tell you why later. I'm going to do my last one with you, right sides together, 1/4 inch down, and just press one more time. Remember to be going in the same direction as what we took the previous ones. Now you go ahead and finish this row and also finish the second row, and I'll meet you back here and I'll show you how to connect them both together. Now, do you remember how I said to you have one seam pressed one way and one seam pressed another way on your fabric? Now I'm going to show you why. Here are my first 2 rows. Now I want to make sure that I get a perfect line going all the way down here, and this is why we pressed one on one side and one on the other side. Okay, if you look at this right here, where we folded these 2 fabrics the opposite way, it creates this nice center seam. So the best thing to do here is get a sewing pin and grip that into place, so when we take it over to sewing machine we don't lose that nice center mark. These are right sides together, don't forget, and then once you lie one flat together, the next one will fall into place also. So I'm going to get another pin and I'm going to grip it, and I'm going to move on to my final section here and grip that into place. So as long as you get them seams perfectly matching right sides together, you should have a straight line when you sew straight down here. So here's my fabric in place. I have my 1/4 inch seam, and we are going to take our pins out. We never sew over our pins. I have once sewed over a pin and it flew out and almost hit me in the eye, so please be careful. Do not ever sew over your pins. So we're approaching our first pin, take it out. We're approaching our next pin, let's take this one out. Now if you need to straighten this up at the end, just straighten it up. If you have to just tug it a little bit just to match up with the one underneath, that's what you do. That's perfectly fine. And let's continue on. Here we go, the moment of truth. Is it straight? Let's have a look. Pretty much. This one could be a little bit better, but it's pretty much straight enough. So don't forget, we're going to press this open as well. So let's just press it down. So you end up with something that looks like this. This is a basic square quilt block. So if you want to make a very easy and fast quilt, the square quilt block is definitely the route to go. Now with this, you would just continue going across and continue going down until the size you actually need it. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to give me a like and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss seeing me next week. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.